The board is all present. I'll call the Brandon Select Board to order and thank you all for attending. Is there a motion regarding the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Wyman and a second by Mr. Bailey. Anything to be added or changed on the agenda as it was prepared and warned? If not, all in favor of the agenda as it was posted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Item 2, the minutes of the previous board meetings. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve both.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Giles to Mr. Wyman's motion. Any errors or omissions in the minutes as submitted? If not, ready to approve, all in favor of the minutes as they were submitted for November 23rd and December 9th, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Item 3, the town manager. Oh, actually, we've only got Representative Jerome for the beginning of the meeting. So can I turn it over to you and you can hand off to Butch and tell us whatever it is that you think we ought to know, particularly about town meeting is something we're interested in, if you have info in that regard. Thanks.
Sure, I can just start it off and then Butch, feel free to chime in too. So one of the first bills that's going to be presented in the legislature is going to be concerning town meeting. So obviously town meeting is in March, and although about 1,900 vaccines have arrived in Vermont at UVM Medical Center this morning, I don't believe we're all going to be vaccinated by the time the town meeting comes around. So we're going to have to make accommodations across the state for how town meetings are going to be run. And as you also know, there's a varying ways that town meeting and different, every town has a different governmental setup. So you are going to be looking into how to make town meeting work, but town meetings also, the school budgets are also voted on at the same time. And I did receive some information today about that. So from the chair of the Government Operations Committee in the House, and they're looking at how the town meetings are going to be held, and then also how the school budgets are going to be voted on. And then they're also looking at, with a town meeting, whether they can't be held in person, right? And so there's for our town, we possibly could do Australian ballot, do an outside voting, or delay the meeting. So, Butch, maybe you want to add a little bit more?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Have to remember to do that. But permission to speak to the board, seeing I'm not a resident.
You have standing permission, Butch.
Okay, thank you. So Stephanie hit it on the head, but just a little history behind some of it. Today, Stephanie and I both received emails from Sue Gage and Tim Giles regarding town meetings. But I want to give you a little history. The legislature enacted Act number 162, and that was in regards to, well, the title of the bill was Australia Legality Authority. And that's the bill that gives you, the select board, the authority to do all of your voting by Australian ballot for town meeting. I believe you do now. I think you vote, but I'm not sure. But I think you vote your budget and your school budget by Australian ballot. So you're in the clear there. But if there's any other thing that needs a vote by Australian ballot, you can, by a voice vote at town meeting, you can move that. You have the authority to move that to an Australian ballot question to be answered on the second Tuesday of March. Another provision in that bill, there's 3 basic provisions, is some of you on the select board and others may or may not be up for re-election. at this time. You will not be required to get a petition and gather signatures, which would mimic the procedures that the legislators took. And you'll just have to sign a consent form as a candidate. And I think Sue can probably guide you through that process, but you will not be required to gather signatures. The third piece of that bill gives the Secretary of State the ability to waive statutory deadlines or other provisions set forth in the school district articles of agreement or whatever is necessary for the municipality to apply the Australian ballot system. The kicker to that is that you have to have those provisions set forth in your municipal charter, and the school has to have those provisions set forth in the articles of agreement. So there's some flexibility there in that particular act. So that's current law, and that is in force now. The governor signed it into law end of October, I think. The other questions I had today, one was from Tim Giles. Tim, how you doing? Was, can you start sending out ballots? Can you send Australian ballots? And the answer to that is no. The legislature gave the Secretary of State the authority to send ballots out for the general election, and he needed that authority from the legislature. So you may send out, Sue, you may send out ballots to people that request them, by request as normal practice goes. But as a general rule of thumb, currently, just currently as of today, you can't send ballots out as we all did, as the state did during the general elections. You don't have that authority yet. I'm not sure, as Stephanie said earlier, I'm not sure what government operations is going to come up with on that. I did find out that as current law is written, if you do so decide and you have the authority to send everybody a ballot, that cost will be borne by the town, not borne by the state. Currently, everything's current. Everything is as of today. Should we get more COVID funds? Should the our federal partners in Washington finally come to agreement, we may have some COVID money available for that. But as of today, we do not. And I know, look up the other one, Sue, also you had some questions about school districts and stuff and changing the dates of town meetings and stuff like that. That's a statutory issue that the legislature will have to deal with if you want to push town meetings to a different day. But currently you have to have your town meeting, I believe, on the second Tuesday of March by with So that is another piece that I'm sure that the legislature will be looking at. And Stephanie had that conversation with our chair of GovOps. And I see you mumbling, so.
I was just talking to my husband.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I threw a curveball at you.
I'll let you
So-
finish, and then I have a couple things to add
Sure.
after Stephanie does.
So this is what we know. It is complicated for the school districts. The school districts currently are under the same guidelines as they have been in the past. It will take an act of the legislature to make those. We have heard that the Government Operations Committee would like to get a bill to the floor of their respective bodies by the end of the second week of the legislative session. I think that's going to be a pretty tough thing to do because the first week of the legislative session, there's nothing done. As a matter of fact, we may not even know what our committees are that week. So it could take some time, but certainly by the third week, we should have something to vote on, I'm thinking. And so there you have some surety going forward on that. And you also inquired what happens if you mail the ballots, and you are allowed to mail the ballots. Those ballots come back to you, and it's a town responsibility to count those ballots. But Secretary of State is working on a plan to help you use your tabulators, should you so desire. And currently that charge will be on the town unless we get some COVID money going forward. But they're willing to work with you on tabulating not only the town ballots, but also the school ballots. You'd have to change your your zip drive or however, whatever change you make within the machine to count the school district, but it can be done. And they're considering that also. So that's kind of what I know as of, I don't know, 3:00 this afternoon or so. So it's just, it's a game of just waiting right now. And I apologize for that, but I don't think anybody expected us to be talking COVID in January.
So I reached out to all the town clerks that for the 3 towns that I represent and to get their feelings about this. And so any comments that they've sent me, I've forwarded on to the committee so that they can consider them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to make sure that our voices for the 3 towns I represent are heard in the committee and in the Secretary of State's office. I did send Sue's comments on to Representative Sarah Copeland Hansens, who is the chair of the Government Operations Committee. And she did write back to me this afternoon and said that all of the school budgets have to be voted on the same day. It doesn't mean it has to be the same day as the town meeting votes, but they do have to be done the same day. And so there needs to be some coordination between the town clerk's offices and the school budgets and that voting. So that's another, there's a lot of glitches in this. It's really complicated. At first blush, it sort of seemed like, oh, this is not so bad. But when you start digging deep into this, it gets very complicated. I'm sure Sue's but sick of having to do all of this. But it's I know it's going to be a huge effort to get this one off the ground too. And my concern is that I don't want to see Brandon having to pay for the mail Australian ballots. And if we could, I'd hate to have the town bear the burden of this. And hopefully, like Butch said, that if we can get more CARES Act money or COVID relief money, that perhaps we can put it towards this. Or it replicates what happened in August, where we do a drive-by, and it was Brandon's model was very, very successful, and that perhaps could happen again.
So I do want to emphasize, and thanks, Stephanie. I do want to emphasize for sure that the by request ballot for absentee ballots is currently in effect, and I don't see any big changes coming to that. So that somebody asks you for a ballot, you can certainly deliver it. How far you expand that, we'll find out sometime late January how that's going to all roll out, and we'll see. But for the select board, it's important to know that I don't know how many people are up for election. I don't know what offices you elect for sure, but just remember that now you just have to fill out the consent of the candidate form with Sue to get you on the ballot without collecting signatures.
And if the select board has additional questions about it, feel free to email me, and then I'll forward them on to the committee that's writing the bill.
Sue Gage, did you have some comment or question at this time?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the email that I sent out today. I sent out to Butch and Stephanie, as well as all the clerks in our school district and the school district itself. And my only concern was, once this law passes in late January, we all need to coordinate. I mean, if one town says we're just going to push town meeting out a few months and do a drive-by, I just want us all to be coordinated, because as Butch said, the school district has to have its election on the same day. All the towns have to. So I'm hoping we can coordinate with these area towns so we're all having an election on the same day, if that's one of the options we have. So I'm just sort of planning ahead.
I assume when you're talking about the schools, it's the whole Rutland Northeast, right? It must also be the Barstow folks.
Yes.
Well, no, that's a different municipality. Barstow is, so it would
Still
just
part of it.
But they still pay the
district.
RE central office and so forth.
would just be OVUUSD, basically Otter Valley Unified Union School District. That's the school district that and our town, Brandon is I'm the regional spot or whatever. So all the towns bring their ballots to Brandon and we process them here. So Yeah, it just adds another level of complication. So I just want to get on top of it earlier rather than later.
So we might be a little early in having brought this up because the legislature is going to act. But I guess what I'm understanding from what Butch and Stephanie said is, in Brandon, we do vote candidates and budgets by Australian ballot, but we vote public questions on the floor. So I guess at this point, it would be in order if we wanted to, for the select board to take the option for this year that Brandon's going to vote public questions by Australian ballot. Is that correct?
According to Act 162, that would be correct, Seth. Your board has the authority to do that. And should you take that action, you can do it. I would suggest that you won't have an in-person town meeting as rate things are going right now.
Yeah, I think that our intent in putting this on the agenda was to plan for, my intent was to plan about a Zoom town meeting and, Australian balloting, however we were going to be able to get the ballots out. But is there a motion from the board that Brandon will vote its public questions by Australian ballot this year pursuant to the provisions allowed us by Act 162?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Tracy. Any discussion? Anyone in the public want any input on this topic?
Yeah, I just think we'll stay in touch with what's happening with this bill, and if, like I said, any questions or concerns that you have, or especially with Sue, any very sort of there's so many issues and so many details with this that feel free to let us know, and then we'll find the answer or make sure that there's no weird glitches that happen with the bill, and so these town meetings and this voting can happen seamlessly.
Very good.
Just match it, and there's and the school budgets are voted on and the towns are voted on, and we can all make it work well.
Bill Moore has something.
Yes, as town moderator, I have a question about whether or not we will be conducting an informational meeting, either by Zoom or otherwise, to at least allow the dissemination of information.
I don't see why there couldn't still be a meeting on Zoom. Do you, Butch? I see no reason why there.
No, my conversations with our guys at the Secretary of State's office today, they did actually, I'm sorry about this, Bill, but they did actually bring up informational meetings so that they can proceed as normal. Obviously on a Zoom meeting, but they're anticipating that you will have those informational meetings and then move forward from that.
It'll be interesting to see how many people go to attend on Zoom versus attend in person, right?
Yeah.
Other comments?
Yes, this is Brent Bueller. I would be concerned about a lot of absentee ballots unless the town reports get out early and the budgets get out early.
We can't get a whole lot out early, Brent, because there are statutory deadlines for people to turn petitions for stuff. So we're kind of stuck. We have a pretty slim time frame for all of this, unfortunately.
Right, and that would be my concern with absentee ballots, folks voting without information. Again, I guess that goes back to Bill Moore's comment about getting information out.
Well, Seth, the legislature will provide you folks the tools to do what you need to do. It's just a matter of procedure for the town. So I don't think I'll comment on that, but we'll give you the tools to move forward.
Bill Moore.
Sorry to be a bothersome Bill. I wanted to, since we're not going to be doing any official business save an informational meeting, could we move our informational meeting, earlier relative to the voting?
Sue, are we constitutionally how much leeway does the town have to when they can hold their town meeting?
There's a little flexibility, but I'd have to look it up. I'd have to look up the statutes.
Yeah, it's in statute.
But top of your head.
No, I don't know off the top of my head, Sue. But we
Because
can
we know
find
that
out.
people do have meetings the day before town meeting like we do, and there's folks towns that have it on town meeting. But
I know-
Brattleboro has their town meeting in April.
That took an act of the legislature to do that too. Yeah,
Is
we allowed
the
that.
Charter. I think
I think Salisbury has it on a Saturday though.
you can do it.
And I don't think,
I mean, we could shift ours to a Saturday too, at any time. We don't have to have it the day before, but it's just always been that way. The statutes did allow it to move to the Saturday before town meeting to try to attract more people, the informational meeting. So that's, but I'm not sure if it's more restrictive than that without looking.
so I think someone said it's a little bit of a wait and see time right now, and I think probably that's about where we can be. Can we call the vote on voting Australian ballot from the floor? Or did we already do it, Charlene? I lost track. We didn't do it. All right. So all in favor of voting public questions by Australian ballot this year instead of from the floor, say aye.
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 No, that was unanimous. Okay. Great. Stephanie or Butch, anything you want to add on a different topic before we move forward with the regular agenda?
Well, no, we're still just trying to figure out how we're going to meet in January. It's becoming clearer. We'll know more after the 17th, after House Rules Committees meets. It's looking like we're going to be meeting remotely again. We're trying to work our way through the constitutional challenge for the first day for swearing in and see how that's going to work. We have some housekeeping work that we have to do. So we're like you. I'm like you anyway. I'm sure Steph is too. That we're kind of in a holding pattern here, trying to figure out how we're going to work moving forward.
And I guess so for me, between now and when we get sworn in on January 6th, I have about 2 meetings a day of just background information, and people want to bring us up to date on different issues and different subject areas. So it's been it's pretty busy just in getting prepared to go into the legislature. So I guess I would just like to encourage anyone to, if they have questions or concerns about any topics or any legislation that they think is important to them, just reach out to me or to Butch, and be glad to answer questions or to forward your question to the appropriate person and get an answer for you. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that there's an open door, and feel free to call me or email me with any questions you have. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. If that's okay, why don't we go ahead on with the town manager's report, item 3, Mr. Atherton.
Okay. This is my report for the weeks of November 30th and December 7th. Segment 6, there was a sewer line connection that had to be made on Champlain Street that was not shown on the plans. They're doing it now. This was a building that was vacant. So it wasn't really known until they started working on the building. So that's getting addressed. It started last week and getting addressed this week. We had to replace one of the sidewalk crosswalk control buttons on Park Street, Franklin Street. It was malfunctioning last week, and something was wrong with the button. So that was taken care of. And looking forward, the remaining things of segment 6, which aren't much, will shut down on December 18th and resume on April 15th, 2021. And that will be to mill and pave and line stripe the work area on West Seminary Street, and do the crosswalk markings as well. And then the sidewalk repairs and replacement will also commence on the 15th, and they're looking at having the sidewalk done by May 31st, and that will be the final project end date. Started employee evaluations this week. Hope to have them done actually by Christmas. attended a local roads meeting via Zoom on December 2nd to discuss highway department plans due to the pandemic. The discussion was centered around what departments have planned in case their crew is exposed to the virus. It was informative, but it was basically mirrored what we had put in place back in March. So it's good to see that we're still on track with that. As a reminder, the next budget meeting is Tuesday, December 15th. And another thing I wanted to bring up too that's not on my report is we have a select board meeting scheduled for December 28th. That's the Monday after the Friday Christmas. I know in the past we have not had that meeting and dealt with if we had warrants, if you guys had warrants to sign or anything at one of the budget meetings, which we usually have one like, right after New Year's just to wrap things up. So I was wondering if you guys were okay with not having that select board meeting on the 28th.
We can have discussion before a motion using our Robert's rules for small boards. Any discussion on that suggestion from Dave about omitting the December 28th select board meeting?
It's fine with me to not have it. We have not had it other years, so.
I think also because the legislature is not going to have met to do any, town meeting stuff, we won't really have new information on that particular topic. So I also would be fine with skipping that meeting. Others?
I'm good with it. I'm good with skipping it.
Tim, Brian?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, can we have a vote? I'll move that we omit the December 28th scheduled select board meeting. Is there a second? Second from Bailey. Any discussion? All in favor of skipping the December 28th select board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. It's unanimous. Thanks, Dave. Good suggestion.
Thank you, guys. So then this rec department news, excuse me, the Brandon Rec has teamed up with the Brandon Area Chamber of Commerce and the Reporter to sponsor and expand the holiday decorating competition. Get Lit Brandon. More prize categories including a best lit street. Judging occurs on the 20th. Brandon Area Toy Project, with help from Brandon Rec, Brandon Free Public Library, and the Chamber, are hosting a reverse parade on the 20th. From 5 to 6. Folks who want to experience the inaugural holiday celebration should travel down High Street and onto Park Street and exit the parade route through Lot A. All kinds of displays, both temporary lots and houses along the route will be so cheery, according to Bill Moore. The Brandon Rec and Library are partnering on two endeavors to break the COVID blues, thanks to a partnership with Olivia's Croutons. A monthly baking competition will commence with the first challenge, Get Stuffed. Who comes up with these names, Bill? Get Lit, Get Stuffed. What can you do with stuffing? Register and pick up the supplies on December 18th. Judging will be visual for now, with the winner's recipe being promoted by Olivia's. And Quiz Night is back on Zoom. The resumption of this pub-style trivia game was an early pandemic adjustment that became a weekly distraction for folks locked down. December 19th, we'll have 12 teams participating, and starting after the New Year, weekly on Saturdays for the winter. Register your team online. And our youth sports season is awaiting direction from the Scott administration, and once we have been given the green light, we'll work with the school to bring back basketball and cheerleading. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions from the board for the town manager? Not seeing anybody, so I'll open it up to the public. Any questions from the public for the town manager? And there's always room for public comment on every agenda item, so don't be worried that we're going to move it along. Item 4 is the zoning administrator's report from Mr. Biasuzi. Jeff, thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for the report you submitted in advance. I'll turn it over to you.
Jeff, you're muted.
How's that? Everybody okay with the volume? All right, so thank you. So hopefully you've had a chance to read the report. Interestingly enough, the level of permit activity for the fiscal year ending in June was significantly higher than in the past 2 years. Certainly didn't break any records for number of permits issued in Brandon in a fiscal year, but we're hoping that will be our future. The pattern of permit activities is fairly consistent. The pandemic gave folks lots of time and some maybe stimulus money to go out and build that shed or porch or deck that they'd been holding off on. And that was where we had a large jump in the number of permits. The other permit related highlights that are discussed in my report should be no surprise to the select board, with the exception of some of perhaps the more recent ones. The high school owner of the high school has been busy this summer, as I understand it, working with an architectural firm to prepare for a permit application, including Act 250, to convert the building into residential apartments. That'll make obviously a huge advantage to housing opportunity, which is becoming more and more difficult everywhere, but certainly no less in Brandon. I have not had to go to task yet on the river corridor rules, but there's been some inquiries both on Mill Street and on Briggs Lane for future improvements to property along those routes, and that would in fact impact river corridor. And perhaps any questions up to this point in my report, folks? Nope. Okay. So I'm not sure if the Planning Commission or the Development Review Board or the Energy Commissions have submitted their own reports, or they probably will.
I think we've heard at least from planning and energy. I don't know if we've heard from the DRB yet.
Okay. Well, I know Allie from the Planning Commission is with us tonight. I don't know if she'd like to add to those comments, but the Development Review Board has had kind of a quiet year, as most of the DRBs I'm familiar with have. The interesting thing about the ones in Brandon is the focus has been on farm animals, farm animal permits, which is kind of unique to Brandon, I will say, from other towns in Rutland County, is something that the Planning Commission and I have discussed. The language is set that unless you qualify as a farm under the Vermont Agricultural Practices Act, or Required Practices Act, you have to get a permit, whether it's one chicken or a flock of chickens, apparently. And so there's room for improvement and sophistication on that. More of a hot button item has been noise, and the select board I know has had to with folks very much upset about noise issues. Some of them have been directly a cause of the pandemic, with folks having so much time on their hands. But the Planning Commission had its last meeting strictly focused on upgrading noise regulations, and is doing research and will probably continue that focus for the next meetings to come. Allie, would you like to add to that, maybe? No? Okay.
I don't think it's nice to see your face, Jeff. Your face is showing on this call. I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay, well, the reason for that, Allie, is that I found out my camera on my laptop is kaput, and so I got another one. I've been going undercover because for the last few meetings we couldn't figure out. I had voice command on Planning Commission and Energy Commission meetings, but no pictures. So. So the enhanced energy plan, the board has not had to oppose any projects that have come up. There's been several solar projects proposed, and it's commendable that you folks have a full planning commission. I will say planning commissions around Rutland County especially are starving for volunteers. Zoning violation issues.
Before you go on to zoning violations, Jeff,
Yep.
if you're going along in your report, I tried to identify things where you were asking for select board support or input. And under the development review board, you suggest that the select board should help locate new participants.
Right. The select board is lacking a full-time member and an alternate. So anything that
I think you mean the development review board.
Development review board, sorry. Development review board is lacking a full-time member, and it doesn't have an official alternate. So anything that the select board might be able to do, put their thinking caps on, tap into their knowledge of folks that might be willing to be invited, I think is appreciated. So.
Okay.
So zoning violations, some are old, some are ongoing. The old ones everybody's familiar with. We've made some progress on them. We've resolved some of them. We've got some in the works, but I think I've highlighted in each of the cases I've noted here the plan of attack, which is going to be right after the holidays, sending out some mail instead of Christmas cards. The two issues that we've had that have not really come up on the radar is we have this camper occupancy issue. Brandon allows for a property owner to occupy a camper on his property for 21 days. Can't be a rental situation. It's an invitation situation. And unfortunately, we've had, as I've seen in other townships, an issue where folks are just desperate for housing and thinking that a camper designed for summer weather is going to be an option. It isn't. I mean, the campers just do not function under winter conditions. So we've had to address some of those. I've had some questions on sign issues, soft banner signs and feather type signs. I've had talks and discussions with property owners that have those signs. Hopefully we'll be able to get them back into compliance. But another recent issue that's come up, and I don't know that I've just missed it all this time or it's just becoming kind of a rash, is the 2 square foot fluorescent or neon open signs in the windows. Just in the last couple of months, we've seen a number of them in downtown businesses. I don't write the rules, folks. I just get to tell folks that the rules say no neon illumination. So I'm sure that is not going to be well received. And perhaps the planning commission, if they go through their work tweaking the Blue O in the next year or so, might amend that consideration. But right now, we've got a situation where we're going to get more and more of these little neon open signs in the windows, and the rules, in my interpretation, are pretty clear that they're not supposed to be there. So, and then with signage, finally, I'd love to get some clarification on the, talk with Dave on this, about the soft banners on the buildings. I think those were great for downtown. I have no opposition to leaving them there forever as long as they're maintained. but I don't know what the rules are on them because they're not in the Blue O. They were an ordinance passed by, an act passed by the select board. And I'd love to get some clarification if merchants can continue to use them and add to them as new merchants come on board, or what they can expect if when the road project gets done. So.
Yeah, Dave has a thought, and then I have a thought, but go ahead.
So Jeff, those banners were done when we had marketing money that was coming in from the state for segment 6. They were allowed to be there until the completion of segment 6, which looks like is going to be March 30 or May 31st. So I believe, if I remember correctly, when this was discussed, that we were all kind of feeling that the businesses could do whatever they needed to do to be able to market themselves through all of the construction. So the board had waived some sign stuff, and Bill had worked with the chamber and everything to get, we were doing directional signs for businesses down here for a while. And so these were all related to segment 6. And once segment 6 is done, the banners are done.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. So the banners downtown were authorized by the select board, and all I'm asking is for some clarification and maybe some suggestions on keeping them. I think they're in good taste, and what I think doesn't make any difference. But the merchants need some guidance on this, I think, and there are some folks that will certainly complain about them. And I have to be able to say they're allowed under this rule or they're allowed under the Blue O. So,
Thanks, Jeff. So we can discuss this as we're in the report here. My view is that we should be as lenient as we can be through the segment 6 date, but after that date, there's got to be some action from the Planning Commission to authorize this with their sign ordinance.
Seth, this is Bernie.
Yeah.
When we went through that whole program, each of the merchants were very clearly told that these were strictly through segment 6. And when segment 6 ended, they would have to come down.
okay, thank you for that clarification. I will say we've had new merchants come into the town who weren't familiar with that process. They come in and they haven't had this discussion from its initial phases. So. And we'll put this in the minutes, and I can refer to folks to that, and that is a great solution to the situation.
Dr. Bailey has. Hold on.
Yeah. I just wanted to throw in one quick thing. It's not a sign per se, but in a recent stroll downtown, I think yesterday, I noticed a downtown merchant who had a open flag stuck into one of the brand new trees that we planted. Didn't have any holder by his store or whatever, but so he went over and attached it to tree branches in our freshly planted tree. So I kind of get a feeling that someone who does that, I don't know, but I think that should be nipped pretty quick. I don't think we want people hanging things in our new trees.
We can certainly bring that up. I mean, one of the things that the Planning Commission discussed that I have found works pretty well is the use of a town newsletter or a section of the town website that discusses current issues, and that's a great spot where folks can either get a heads up on a trend or an issue. I encourage that. Yeah, I mean, obviously the merchant doesn't own the tree, and there is state rule against nailing things to trees that are advertising. But
I wasn't really suggesting that you had to do this, Jeff. I was kind of even thinking Bernie Carr from the Chamber of Commerce, maybe in one of their newsletters or something. It would be a nice, simple thing to update people on the signs that were temporary and when that's going to be unallowed, but also to, not stick things in the public way or trees. So it just something I saw and shook my head.
Yeah, I'll look for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. And Dave has something else?
So yeah, that flag, I noticed that a couple of days ago too. It's actually stuck in the tree grate that goes around the tree. It's not like nailed to the tree or anything. Someone just stuffed it in the grate that goes up the side of the tree. So just wanted to clarify that. We don't want anyone thinking that we're putting nails through anybody's trees or whatever.
That business has enough room to hang it somewhere else, though. It shouldn't be in the grate.
Okay. So Brandon's sign ordinance, which was reduced from 6.5 pages, as I understand it, to about 2.5, is also a subject. I'm sorry. Oh, that's an echo. I'm getting a beat.
It's from Doug.
I'll mute.
So the Blue O, I've suggested to the Planning Commission, it's had 2 years now to go through the new rules, and there's some things that I'd like to suggest to the Planning Commission at some point when they're going through article by article tweaks to the current rules. So I think unless there's questions, I'll just end my part of the meeting with the 2 miscellaneous items. One is an office schedule. Right now, it sounds like I will be coming in on Tuesdays all day as before, and probably Wednesday mornings. And that gives me actually flexibility on Wednesday afternoons to stay as long as necessary to attend to peaks in the business. Then an interesting point, and I hope this is the folks have looked at the land use schedule for fees, not the land use schedule, the fee schedule for fees, compared to what the old one was, is in your packet, the one that we're using now, and the new one, which if nothing else is simpler, more direct, and readable for old folks like me who can't see fine print like the existing one has. But the biggest change that I've proposed on the zoning fee schedule is the zoning review for compliance. We get a lot of requests by attorneys now who wants the zoning administrator to go back through the public files and then attest to the fact that it's the town's opinion that the property in question is in compliance. Well, it takes time. So, it's your pleasure on whether or not you want that to continue as a pro bono or be compensated. I've had some commercial reviews in other towns that have taken 2 days to get wallowed through because of issues. So that's the reason for that thought. And by the way, if you take a look at the proposed fee schedule that I've typed out here, and you take the base zoning fee and you add the required recording fee, it's exactly the same numbers as the current schedule, even though the state of Vermont has increased the recording fee by $5. So I didn't want everybody to get excited with the fees going up, but the new fee does not reflect that $5 change. It actually keeps $15 going to the clerk's office for the required rezoning fee, recording fee that's set by the state, but it reduces the net result to the Brandon fee. So the Brandon fee schedule is actually a reduction unless you want to increase the fees to reflect the $5 for recording that the state dictated on July of last year.
Thank
So,
you. Tim, go ahead.
well, I have a couple of things. Shall we first address this last one? Shall we make a motion to approve the new zoning fees that he put in our packet?
Well, it's just Tim, if I might clarify, it's the same fees, even though there's an increase that's going to the state.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, but it's a new format.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It says here our approval is required, and so I'm assuming that we should make a motion of some kind to approve it. Yeah, so I make that motion.
Is there a second? Second from Mr. Wyman. Any discussion on the proposed revision to the fee schedule as it was presented tonight, recommended by the zoning administrator? Any discussion from the board or the public? If not, all in favor of a, whoa, Bill Moore. Just in time, Bill Moore.
Brent Bueller has his hand up.
Oh, I didn't know that. Brent
Yeah,
Bueller.
so quick question. If a builder, developer pays for the attorney's fees to check compliance, it's not in compliance, then do penalties and et cetera from the town apply? And are they then, I don't know.
Okay, so usually quickly what happens is attorneys want to search title about 3 days before a closing so that nobody will slip in a mechanic's lien or otherwise just before the closing. It's a terrible practice because when they come in to search title and there's perhaps an unpermitted structure or an unpermitted use on a piece of property, there isn't a 3-day window of opportunity to fix that. There is a pretty easy window of opportunity to fix it in most cases. In many cases, the easiest solution is to just get the permit in place and not delay a real estate transfer unless there's clear malice in a lot of cases. I had one just the other day. Guy bought the piece of property. It had the shed on the back porch or on the back of the lot when he bought the property. He lived there all these years, went to sell it. Attorney asked for an opinion of compliance. Shed never had a permit. So the quick solution was to have someone, either the seller who really didn't have any responsibility why the permit was there, or the buyer to apply and get a corrective permit. Okay, so that happens a lot. Sometimes the shed has to come down. That's another solution. Sometimes the violation is so egregious, the lawyers won't certify title, and then the transaction's on hold until the problem's resolved. And that often is not a good solution because buyers go away. But I mean, I'm only here to tell folks when they ask me if it's in compliance and I have clear evidence that it isn't, to give them the right answer. So, I mean, it's not an everyday occurrence, but it is a frequent enough occurrence. So if the violation is a direct result of malice by the property owner, yeah, he's subject to zoning violations, especially if he makes, no effort to rectify the situation.
Thank you, Jeff, for the answer. Brent, is there anything else? Did that answer your question?
Yes, I understand title searches and that. So, but yeah, I'm speaking more about properties, commercial properties that actually weren't permitted for the use they're being used for or have been used for. So, thanks.
Thanks, Brent. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor of the revisions to the zoning fee schedule as proposed by the zoning administrator tonight, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll take that as unanimous. Thank you. Jeff, I had a question just regarding the report. I want to thank you for this report. It's thorough, but not more than we need to know, and that's nice. This is a great report to the board. Was this report the report that you intend to be put into the book? And if so, the whole thing or just portions of it, or are you going to be submitting a different report for the book?
Well, I'm going to take the context from the first page, top first page. Typically, the annual report will include, say, that opening paragraph and the notation on the number of and type of permits. And then I only usually add to the annual report a couple of highlights, such as, there's some progress, but the planning commission will submit its own report to make its own submission to the annual report. I expect the energy commission will too. I'm not so sure about the development review board, but no, to answer your question, I usually bring it down to a third of a page on the annual report or less.
Okay, great. So thank you for that. We're kind of working on that now. So whenever you can get that digested version to us, it would be appreciated. Tim, go ahead.
We will do
Yeah,
that.
I have a few more questions, Jeff. A couple of these, I noticed you conclude in the zoning violations. It says enforcement action is considered appropriate. And that sounds tentative. Is that something that you're going to make happen? Is this something that the police chief gets involved in? I mean,
No, it's not a police chief matter. These are clear zoning issues. These are some of them are the perpetual ones that we've talked to property owners and they say, yes, I'll get the paperwork to you. And a year later, and after several conversations later, I haven't seen anything. I have one particular business tenant and a person who's a rental that's operating an unpermitted business. They said we've been discussing the situation for about a year. And as recently as October, there were scheduled to come in and meet and resolve it, and that was a no-show. So
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not wanting to get involved in the minutia of each case, but I do want to have the sense that when you write enforcement action is considered appropriate, that this means it's being ratcheted up to something that's actually going to get solved.
it's going to be ratcheted up to an official level where they'll have a timeline, or it'll go to a formal violation, or it'll be a formal violation.
No, great, because I see three of those that rise to that.
Yes.
And then the last thing I have that I marked on the report that you sent is you write here on page 3 under noise and gunfire complaints, I feel that town rule noise regulations should be a standalone ordinance in order to facilitate enforcement by the zoning administrator, police, animal control, even rental officer, if so authorized by the select board. And I'm just wondering if that requires any attention on our part, or if that's just something that you are passing on as information on the way by.
Well, it's actually for the planning commission to digest and make proposals and then submit to the select board. The answer is if they want to continue, if the planning commission feels that the document that they're going to draft to improve the current noise ordinance that's in the Blue O is going to continue to be in the Blue O, they will make that recommendation, and they'll do as the process, the statutory process requires. They'll have public hearing on it. They'll have a recommendation to the select board, and they'll submit the revised Blue O for amendment to the select board for its public hearing. So the option that the planning commission does have is to recommend take that particular language and make it a standalone ordinance. And then it isn't confined to the zoning administrator, who might be able to be authorized to write civil violations tickets.
So you're suggesting we wait for the planning commission to...
It's in the planning commission's review now. I would wait for their decisions on that.
Okay.
And their suggestions.
Great. Well, thanks. I appreciate the depth of your report. I found it really informative.
Oh, well, thank you.
Jeff, could I just ask one little thing? When you do the summary report for the book, could you make a point to include the change that you mentioned at the very end about your office hours?
Well, the office hours were in flex until Thursday of last week. So I really and what I did 2 weeks ago is I sent out to all the town clerks and the towns the update that I'd like to move my office hours around, and I got feedback from that, which is what I asked for, and so they got tweaked Thursday, and then tomorrow I'm going to do this. I'm going to repeat the process and send out a request for the towns to consider. The only town that really has the most change is Brandon, because while Pittsford's causing the change, and so there's Pittsford and Brandon that are kind of nesting in my hour schedule together. but instead of being in Brandon on Tuesdays and Fridays, which is what I've been, it'll be Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Great.
And so that, I mean, I always like to ask the town clerk and other members in the town if that's a problem, and if so, let me know why. I obviously have missed it, and if they don't have any objection to that, then we'll have plenty of time to get the word out in the town meeting and in the annual report, and start advertising it on the website and so on as of January 1.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Anything else on this matter? That's all. All right. Thank you, Jeff. We'll move on to public comment and participation. Does anyone on the board have any agenda item that they'd like to discuss that doesn't appear on the agenda? Not seeing any takers. Any member of the public tonight with public comment and participation? Bill Moore's got a hand up.
Before we move into hour 2, I wanted to just make everyone aware of the fact that the Otter Creek Communications Union District has been meeting regularly, and our numbers have grown. We're now 13 towns strong, and we are in receipt of the feasibility study that was paid for by Broadband Innovations Grant. And it's suggesting that we go forward as a communications union district to start working toward actually laying down some fiber. We'll be submitting an annual report and budget for submission to the town report as is required by statute. And I'm going to put in the chat a link to an outreach tool. I encourage you to pass along to your neighbors and friends and family throughout Rutland region, so people will know about, they can just get in line. This is one of our things that we need to do. One of the prerequisites to building out is to find out what the need is. And so if people fill this out, it'll be included on our list.
Is that something we should give to Lee to put into the Brandon Reporter with a little explanation that we're encouraging people to actually go to that website and fill in information?
I would. I mean, I'm letting you guys know ahead of time. Our final website's sort of being finalized, and we've got a mailer going out to 25,000 addresses in Rutland County. So I mean, as a part of guerrilla marketing, it's sort of like that to be, as we get toward the end of the month, especially when we have the website fully developed. I mean, the outreach tool is a separate website, but our own informational website will be more solid by the end of the month. But you can share the outreach tool.
That is great. Thank you, Bill. Other public comment tonight, public participation. Any topic you want.
I have a question. The Planning Commission, I wasn't aware they were rewriting the signage and noise ordinances. So I certainly wouldn't want to wait until they presented it to the town and it went to an immediate vote before I participated. But I can't attend every meeting all the time. So how can we get this information out to the public, what's occurring on different committees as they rewrite rules and regulations?
Can I address
Sure,
that?
Jeff. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so the simplest way to keep track of what's going on, and it's the most succinct way, is to look on the town website, where Charlene Bryant will have prepared an excellent summary of meeting minutes for all the appropriate meeting panels, and that's your heads up on a month-to-month basis of what the committees are doing. And I can't tell you how many times you've gone to through the process and you've begged people to come and participate in the public process on a meeting-to-meeting basis. And when you come to the public hearing, it's like they've never heard what's going on, and it's the first time they knew it was going on, and it might be a breakdown in communication. But the minutes are posted monthly. Usually, like the open meeting rule is 5 days after the meeting, and Charlene does a great job of doing those for this town. So.
I agree that Charlene does a fabulous job, but I just feel that it could be presented to the select board so that the Brandon Reporter can pick it up and notify people what is being reconsidered and rewritten into the rules. Again, folks don't have time to go on every committee and board to read the minutes of every meeting and possibly miss something. So it would be much better if it were notified in some fashion.
Well, on the other side of the coin, the town government and its staff doesn't have time to provide concierge contact information. The Brandon Reporter and any newspaper knows when it's looking for a news article to stop and visit panel meeting minutes on their websites. So I mean, it's not a perfect world, unfortunately, but that really is a very efficient way to inform the public of what the local government is doing, is visit the town website and read the minutes.
Thank you both. Further public comment on any other topic? If not, we'll go along, but it's a pretty informal type board, so stop us if you want to talk about something else. Item 6 is town manager authority regarding appointed officials. This has to do with a little one-page email that has to be included in the packet. Dave included it in the packet for us. Thank you, Dave. And again, because we work on rules for small boards, we can discuss this before we have a motion if you want, or we can proceed however. What's the pleasure of the board? Well, I would then move to make an official finding of the italicized text in this one-page thing, basically saying that the town manager, the select board requires the assistance of the town manager in the form of providing supervision and evaluations of the officials the board is required to appoint: the zoning officer, the animal control officer, and the rental code and health officer.
I second that.
Thanks, Tim. There's a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? I laid out a little reasoning in that. This is kind of a long-standing gray area for these positions, and I think this might clarify it for both the employees and the town and the community.
I have a question.
Please do.
Would those the activity of those departments then be reported by Dave in his biweekly select board meeting, or how would those activities be reported? In the past, I know some of them were reported biweekly. Now they seem to be reported, I don't know, not very frequent.
The select board actually established a policy related to how frequently we needed reports from various boards and committees, and all of these boards or all of these officers would have been included in that. And my recollection is that we only requested infrequent reports, either an annual or possibly we might have asked for a semi-annual report from some of them. But I don't think that there's any desire on my part that we need to hear from Dave or from these individual officers, even on a monthly basis, unless the big caveat in that policy is unless common sense requires or dictates that the board should be informed of something.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Any more discussion or public input? If not, we're ready. Dave, you have something to do with this?
And I've been kind of quiet through this one. I have no problem with the departments reporting to the board as they have been. I don't think that needs to change at all. If they've got something the board wants to hear, by all means, I think they should continue it.
So are you suggesting we should change the motion that Seth put forward? Because here it suggests that the town manager would assist the board by providing supervision and evaluation.
I don't think the two are even related, Tim. I think if someone that's a department head wants to present something to the select board, I'm not going to say no. They can do it whenever they want. That's fine with me.
Okay.
Ready to vote?
Or actually, you know, if they want me to do it, I could do it too. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't really find that we were talking too much about reporting in this. It's mostly about the fact that these are 3 paid officials that deserve to have a supervisor. Did you have something else, Tim? You're kind of looking like.
No, it's not to be at all argumentative because it seems like this is an easy thing that everybody's in agreement on. I'm just recognizing that part of managing is the assumption that those people are going to reporting activities to Dave now, and so specifically he's going to know what's going on and be able to manage them more properly. And so yeah, I'm also happy to have them come directly to us, but it seems like the goal of this vote is to get them specifically feeding information to Dave and having Dave be the one that is the conduit to the board.
Right.
So Jeff and I have had that relationship pretty much anyway. I mean, we try to meet as frequently as we can, just because we're the ones dealing with it day to day. And it seems to work out fine that way. I just know, you know, there's been some back and forth on who reports to who and stuff. And I think this will ease that, who's wondering who's doing what and where and who they should report to. And if I'm the conduit for the board, that's fine with me.
Yeah, thank you for being willing to take up this added responsibility, Dave. I think it's going to be, I really do think it's going to be helpful to the board and to the employees. Okay, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion as I presented it? Charlene has the full version. I sent it to her in advance. All in favor of the motion, unless it needs amendment, say aye.
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 That's unanimous. Thank you. Next agenda item is,
We already went over town report and town meeting prep. Is there more we need to do on that?
I don't think we can do anything else with town meeting. Did you want to say anything else about the town report? We are actively soliciting photographs. If anybody wants to email Tim or me a photograph of some town event they attended, or, you know, Brandon scenery, those kinds of things.
High res if possible.
Yeah, Brandon employees, town of Brandon employees in action, those types of things. But yeah, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. We have made a request 3 weeks ago for all the boards and committees to submit their annual reports. We made a reminder request a week ago. We've received many of them, and we want to thank all the officers and staff and boards and committees who have submitted reports for the annual report. And those who haven't, please do make an effort to get that in coming days, not weeks, because we have some publication deadlines and so forth to meet legal warning requirements. Item 8 then, certificate of project. Oh no, didn't we have one other thing about the town report? Weren't we going to ask Dave? Yeah, we had something else about the town report to do tonight. We were going to ask Dave, can you weigh in and give us the direction that you want us to go regarding the delinquent tax accounts?
Oh, right.
It seems like there's been a little bit of discussion, but nothing definitive.
Yeah, I don't care either way, I guess. I mean, it hasn't been advised for me to proceed with any tax sales or anything right now. So, I don't know how many people expect to see that or not. I mean, it doesn't matter to me either way. I know Tim and I had spoke last week about it, like if it actually serves as a tool to collect, and I don't believe it does that much anymore. There's there's a few people that freak out if their name's on it, but they're not usually the ones that are the problem. So doesn't matter to me.
Tim,
Yeah, I thought thank you for that, Dave, because that's what we talked about. I thought I'd give a little bit of a background for how we kind of got to this. We're using the Derby annual report as kind of a model for how to rework our Brandon report this year. And it just brought up the observation when we were looking at their report that the way they do their delinquent accounts is rather kind of celebrate the fact that they're getting smaller every year. In other words, they do it more as a positive rather than as a negative. And that's what brought up the possibility that we might report delinquent accounts as an aggregate and show that specifically Dave is doing a super job of getting people into payment plans and driving down our delinquent accounts, because my understanding is that over the last 5 or 6 years, that's really come down a lot. And thus we wouldn't list specific names. And I think just to finish this idea is that when we think of those delinquent accounts and the names, I'm sure we all know that some of the people on that list have, specific hardships. And for them to be further exposed to some degree of public shaming, at least in some cases, is really not helpful. And I think that that's why I'm promoting this idea of modeling our delinquent accounts the way Derby does, where we list the total, but not the names and specific amounts.
Tim,
Yeah,
the only thing, like I said, with this year, at least since COVID, with all of the things that have gone on with taxes and the unemployment with folks, and now there's this utility grant that they can apply for. Like, we really haven't been. I haven't been as aggressive with delinquent taxes this year because of this. So I don't know how you want to move forward with that. I'd rather not skip the year with doing what we do, but I understand that, there's a reason for not doing it this year, for, going through with tax sales and everything. So, I don't know, maybe this is a year to not even put anything in. I don't know.
I have to say that I think that the time for printing individual names of delinquent taxpayers may have passed, and I don't know what purpose we're intending for it other than to shame people into paying their taxes. And I'm not sure that that's a legitimate use of the town report.
Brent has his hand up too.
Oh, I didn't know that. How do you know Brent has his hand up and I don't
You
know?
look at participants.
Yeah?
The participant list shows when the hand's up.
Sorry. I'm all for not listing them, but I did make a format suggestion to the board that if they do list them, at least have some type of acknowledgement for the folks that have worked with Dave to set up a payment plan, so that people can at least see those folks are making an effort and communicated with the town to come current in some fashion.
I think that Dave indicated that one hesitation with that is that people kind of fall out of payment plans. Do they come and go, Dave? Or were you trying to tell me that, like, if you do it on a certain date, it's kind of only like a snapshot in time, and that there will have been people who had been in payment plans? And yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, we've had to get a little more aggressive with our payment plans, I guess is the only way to say it. Where folks would come in, right after May, set a plan up, and in the letter it stipulates that you have to make your monthly payment for your delinquents, and you have to be current on your current, like stay current with your current taxes. Either or, you've really violated the plan. And I know folks have hard times, some things come up, and I've said, just give us a call, and well, it's okay. Just give us a heads up that you're not doing it. And some people just do it, and then 6 months later, they come in and say, oh, well, you're sending me the nasty letters again. It's like, well, you didn't tell us. So, yeah, there's definitely a list of repeat offenders that, some of them we've finally dealt with, or they don't live in town anymore. But, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think if you looked at any town in Vermont, the percentages are probably pretty consistent of, who's paying, who's not, and who's stretching it out as long as they can.
Tim?
Well, do we need to have a motion, or is this something we're going to work out just by consensus tonight? And
I think we at least need to hear what the board thinks and come to at least consensus of the board, whether or not we have a motion. I mean, this is I look at it as a change to an established practice.
yeah,
And I think that, when we change an established practice of, many, many years, probably decades standing, we ought to discuss it and not just have it happen. So what do others think?
I'm good at leaving it out. I'm fine with that.
Doug, Brian, others?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine leaving it out. I think it would be a good year to try it. If we see that our non-payment list goes way up, then we know we need to give that as another tool to Dave. But I think it'd be worth trying not listing the delinquent tax, water, and sewer.
Okay. Objection? Anyone? Otherwise minded?
does Brian have an opinion on this? And I'm sorry, Brian, you're muted, I think.
Brian, unmute yourself.
I'm fine with it for now. Hopefully we don't see too much of an increase in it.
Okay, so it seems like it's consensus of the board, at least for this year, that we will not publish the list of delinquent taxpayers. And I'm going to assume that that applies to the delinquent sewer accounts at the same time, because it's basically the same conversation. And I did want to also acknowledge, Brent did send the board an email in the fall with several ideas and, for improving the town report. And Brent, the little working group that the select board has authorized to work on the town report this year has, we've looked at these suggestions and others of our own and others that we've taken from some other towns. And absolutely, I think, in a broad sense, that I think you're going to be pleased with what we're doing with the specifics in your email to the board. I think the footnotes in the budgets describing differences between budgeted and actual, that can be done. And we are looking to do that in cooperation with the department heads and the town manager. The budget year designations, splitting the fiscal years or showing the 2 calendar years that comprise a fiscal year, I think is great. We can do that easily. The delinquent taxes we just covered. And then in the department breakdown of personnel and benefits, we're kind of working with Jackie and Dave to see how that material can be presented in a way that, as you say, is less opaque. We've got some thoughts in that regard, and we're developing them still. The last one that you suggested regarding the capital improvement plan, we have not included that for a few years now, and I'm not sure the status of it. I'm pretty certain that we will not have time to put that together for this year, if that's the direction that the board wants to ask the town manager to go. I don't think we're going to get it into the book for this year, but it's something we could discuss developing again for the future. We did have one. Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
So those types of plans are great if we have years to follow through with them. The problem that we've seen with any of these capital improvement plans is, even when I came on board, there was kind of one, and like it had been, like 1 year it wasn't funded, then it was, then decided not to do it. It just keeps going back and forth, and anytime an administration or board changes, they don't really work out so well. I don't know. That's just some thought on it.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, I hear you, Dave. I think part of what I might suggest is that this capital improvement plan can be an aspirational plan to help taxpayers see something coming a year or two in advance. So that way, when it comes, when it arrives, they go, "Oh yeah, you've been talking about this for a few years," kind of thing. It's kind of like the town garage. there's been some talk about how it'd be great to have a significant, town garage improvement at some point. And if that was in kind of a 5-year plan, and it might help soften the delivery when it comes time.
Understandable. One thing that's had been brought up through the years that I can remember hearing a lot of is that folks did not want us to hold on to their money if we didn't have to hold on to it. So that, I haven't heard that in a while. Of course, we're not doing it except for police cruisers. So just another thought out there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, Brent?
well, I know from attending the budget meetings too, that paving is a constant on that list of capital improvements. So I know there's the conversation of, again, I hate to be redundant, but 50,000 one year, 100,000 next, 50,000, 100,000. And just, that's a capital improvement, is it not?
Brent, actually, that should be maintenance, annual maintenance.
Okay.
This is just like dirt roads and gravel. It should be an annual maintenance cost that, should stay in our budget.
Gotcha. Okay. I misunderstood. There was some discussion about capital improvements at the last meeting that would fund something, and I missed what it was. It wasn't the roads. You're absolutely right.
I think it might have been we were discussing the future of the 1% option tax that we collect. We had a pretty good conversation on that. So that might have been where that came out.
Right. And is that is capital improvements, correct? That's what it's used for.
So actually, I believe the way the charter was written, it was for capital projects that would be approved by the select board. I'm pretty sure that's how it was written. So yeah, which would be good to have. I mean, like we've been talking about this plan for a highway garage, like Tim brought up. I mean, that's obviously something we wouldn't just start doing next week. We certainly need to have a plan in place for that and funding. So that might be the start of it, but I guess we can see.
Okay, well, I thank you all for considering my format changes. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and thank you for sending those. We do
Sure,
appreciate those.
sure.
Some of them are stuff we had talked about in past years and they got away from us once or twice, and other things were new. So,
and I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but you all got my email about, marijuana retail sales are coming up. So every town's going to be deciding whether they're going to get on that money train or not. So I don't know if this is the year or how the town plans on addressing that, whether it's in the town vote or otherwise.
yeah, we did get the email, and I'm actually glad Butch is still on the call. I had actually talked to Dave last week after reading an article in Vermont Digger about Middlebury having already made the decision to put it on their town meeting ballot for this year. So I talked to Dave about that, and Dave was going to do a little research and find out what, in fact, the towns are allowed to do, whether it's opt-in, opt-out, blah, blah, blah. But I wonder if Butch has anything that he can steer us in that regard.
Thank you, Seth. To the best of my recollection, it's an opt-in vote. So the rules haven't been promulgated yet. The Cannabis Control Board has not been totally created yet. It's still pretty much up in the air. So I can also do some checking for you, but to the best of my recollection, it's an opt-in vote by the town. I was curious to Brent's statement to get on the money train. I'm not so sure that train's ever going to leave the station, but we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see what happens with the control board.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Seth.
Did Sue Gage have something on that?
I do. and I gotta look at the regulations in that law too, but I believe because we have a dispensary in town, that the dispensaries can begin dealing directly to the public, doing what's it called, recreational sales earlier. They can start sooner because they're already set up and regulated, so they can convert quite easily to recreational sales sooner. And I don't know that that requires a vote in the town because they're already in place in the town.
So that's something that we'll have to check on. I know that they're first in line for any permits or whatever for recreational sales because they're currently permitted and growing, but got to do some research on that, and I will.
Did Chief Burkell have anything to offer on this?
Well, interestingly enough, I haven't been part of that discussion at all, but I'd be happy to be. And I think what I've heard is as well, the town would have to opt in, but you also might have to look at your zoning regulations, even considering the dispensary, whether they would have another requirement for a different type of permit, or whether they might have to have another location in town if they were looking at retail sales. And again, I haven't seen the all the rules around it yet either, but I'd be happy to weigh in when the time is appropriate.
Thank you. Is it reasonable to ask Dave or to let Dave know that, you know, the board's got some interest in this, and if you could maybe give us some actual kind of a formal digest of what the options might be when we meet again in January? Thank you, Dave.
And Sue Gage has her hand up.
Oh, Sue. No, she already, I guess it was.
Maybe she hasn't taken it down. There it is. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on town report or town meeting? If not, we'll go along to consider the certificate of project completion for the bond bank. Dave, can you introduce this for us?
Sure. These are the bond certificates for the bonds that the town has taken out for the various projects that are listed. We just have to do this with them. We haven't done one yet. So, I mean, some of these you see are old, like the Culvert Bridge 114. Those, you know, when we bonded a few years back for those. So, it's not the bond that's with Casella for the project. This is our bond bank certificate of completion.
What's the pleasure of the board on these two certificates?
Make a motion, we sign them and forward them on to the proper location.
Second.
Motion from Bailey and a second from Wyman to sign the certificates of project completion for the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank, Series 2014-4 and Series 2017-3, obligations of the town of Brandon. Any discussion? Sue, did you have anything on this, or is this not related to you?
Yeah, no, I sent them up. No, it basically is, we've expended those bond bank funds, and that's pretty, you know, they like us to do that. They keep adding new paperwork. This is something new, but the older bond was that original borrowing of 750,000. Well, it was actually 1.7 million, but most of it went to some old paving projects. And there was 750,000 that went to segment 6. And then the newer bond was for those 3 different projects. And they want us to send that when the project is substantially completed and the funds are dispersed, which is the case for both of those.
It is the case. Congratulations that it is the case. Any further discussion on signing these? If not, all in favor of signing these certificates of substantial completion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That's unanimous. Thanks. Very good.
Dave, where will these be? Will these be upstairs in your office to sign, or will they be down in the town clerk's?
Why don't I put him back on the porch again tomorrow? That might be the easiest, and you guys don't have to try to get in. Does that work for you? Does that work for everyone? Yeah? Okay.
Item 9 then is the fiscal. There are 2 warrants on the agenda.
Make a motion to approve them.
Motion from Mr. Coolidge to approve both of the warrants.
Second.
Second from Mr. Wyman. Any questions on the bills? Doug Bailey.
Yeah, you knew you couldn't get by without a question, right? 2 questions, same vein on each one, just on the 3rd page, Markowski for Park Street. I'm assuming there's some offsetting money that we got in for that. That's not 267,000 coming out of the town fund only.
No, that's the final invoice that gets reimbursed through clean water, drinking water, V-Trans, and
Okay.
Agency of Natural Resources.
All right, yeah, that's what I figured, but I just wanted to hear it. And then on page 4, I'm sure it's the same kind of thing, but it's the Town of Brandon Rec fundraiser for pizza kits, $1,400. I'm sure there's offsetting sale of those pizza kits that comes in and covers that 14 plus more. Is that correct?
Let me speak to that, Mr. Bailey. Absolutely, there is. They collected funds, and so this ended up netting them a profit of $654.
Thank you very much. All my questions.
Great
muted,
questions, great answers. Other questions on any of the bills? If not, ready to vote. All in favor of approval of the 2 warrants, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Any announcements before the board has executive session? There is no liquor commission meeting tonight. There is no wastewater commission meeting tonight. So any last minute announcements? I guess season's greetings are in order to all of you because we will not be meeting before the new year. So hope that 2020 is in the rearview mirror for all of us and we breathe the sigh of relief and have a beautiful 2021.
Look, we're meeting tomorrow, Seth.
Oh,
We have a budget meeting tomorrow.
yeah, right. It's a different crowd. Any other announcements? Okay, if not, the board's going to go ahead. Is there a motion to enter executive session per Title I VSA 313A3 for the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee?
So moved.
Wyman made the motion. Got a second from Coolidge.
See you,
Okay.
Chris.
Thanks, everybody.